Peeper, Stanley hissed, clutching his binoculars. He was looking right at apartment 201. Maybe he was looking for a way out of this conversation. Stanley, Helen yawned. But the rumor spread. Jonna and Chrissy became convinced that every shadow was a prowler. They insisted Jack stay in the living room as a guard dog, which Jack enjoyed until he realized he had to sleep on the floor. "I'm a chef, not a commando," Jack complained, huddled in a blanket. The peeper was eventually caught. It was just Larry Dallas, who had lost his contact lens while trying to impress a girl on the second floor. "Larry, you idiot!" Jack yelled as they found him crawling in the begonias. "Hey, I found the lens," Larry beamed, holding up a tiny piece of plastic. "Now, can someone help me up? My back is out." Chapter 16, The Great Sunday Paper Heist. Sunday mornings were meant for the funnies, at least according to Stanley. But when his paper didn't arrive, he went on a rampage. "Someone stole my Andy cap," Stanley roared, banging on Jack's door. Jack, who had actually accidentally picked up Stanley's paper and then spilled an entire pot of coffee on it, was in a panic. He and the girls spent an hour trying to dry the paper in the oven, which only made it smell like burnt news. "Here you go, Mr. Roper," Jack said, handing over a crisp, slightly charred bundle. The delivery boy must have had a rough morning. Stanley looked at the paper. "Why is Andy cap black and white and crunchy?" "It's the new high-fiber edition," Jack lied through his teeth. Stanley spent the rest of the day complaining that his news was well done, while Jack quietly swore to never touch another person's mail again. Chapter 17, The New Normal. As the months turned into years, the trio of apartment 201 settled into a rhythm that felt less like a temporary arrangement and more like a permanent state of being. They learned to navigate Stanley's moods, Helen's caftans, and the constant, buzzing threat of being found out by the world. They weren't just roommates anymore. They were a support system. When Jonna had a bad day at the shop, Jack made her favorite pasta. When Chrissy was confused by a memo, Jonna sat with her and explained it. And when Jack was overwhelmed by Monsieur Pierre, both girls were there to taste test his creations, even the ones that tasted like habanero lasagna. They were three people from different worlds, brought together by a fluke of fate, a used car salesman's debt, and a very strict landlord. But as they sat together on the couch, watching the flickering screen of their small television, they knew they had found something special. Santa Monica was full of freaks and weirdos, as Stanley liked to say. But in apartment 201, they had found the only thing that really mattered: a place to belong. Epilogue: The door is always open. The sun rose again over Santa Monica, starting a new day of drowsy window shadows and dust motes. Stanley Roper sat in his recliner. Helen filed her nails in the bedroom, and upstairs, The sound of a falling whisk signaled that Jack Tripper was awake and probably burning something. Life was a ball again. Laughter was calling. And down at their rendezvous, they knew that as long as they had their lovable space, they would always be Three's Company. Come and knock on our door. We've been waiting for you. The Santa Monica Trio, Chronicles of Apartment 201. Chapter 1, The New York Interloper. The morning sun over Santa Monica was never just a light source, it was a character. It filtered through the slats of the jalousie windows in Stanley Roper's ground floor apartment, illuminating the dust motes that danced over his floral patterned recliner. Stanley sat there, a man whose permanent expression suggested he had just bitten into a lemon, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. He was a man of simple, albeit grumpy, pleasures, and his morning ritual was sacred. In the bedroom, the heavy silence was punctuated by the rhythmic scratch of a nail file. Helen Roper, draped in a multicolored caftan that looked like a localized explosion in a textile factory, was grooming herself with the focus of a diamond cutter. Her life with Stanley was a long-running comedy of errors, one she survived through razor-sharp wit and a wardrobe that could be seen from space. "Be quiet, Helen," Stanley hissed, his voice like sandpaper on silk. "You're gonna wake Karen." Helen didn't miss a beat. Her file paused for a microsecond before resuming its labor. "Filing my nails is gonna wake up your knees. It's not the filing, Stanley. It's the breaking. Every time you break a nail, you swear loud enough to wake the dead. Oh, so that's what got you up." Stanley groaned. His niece, Karen, had arrived from New York 48 hours ago, and since then, Stanley had transformed into a self-appointed warden. He felt the weight of his brother's expectations like a physical burden. To Stanley, New York was a den of iniquity, but Los Angeles? Los Angeles was a sprawling, neon-lit jungle of freaks, weirdos, and perverts. "Just hold it down, will you?" Stanley pleaded. "She flew in from New York and she's tired. You've heard of jet lag, haven't you?" Helen smirked, her eyes twinkling with a mischief that 20 years of marriage hadn't managed to extinguish. "Heard of it? I married it. You've been in a permanent state of jet lag since 1957, Stanley. You're still trying to adjust to the invention of the hula hoop." The bickering continued, a familiar ritual that served as the soundtrack to their lives. Stanley defended his itinerary for Karen Disneyland, the museum, the pier, and his exhaustive, nightly recitations of his war stories. Helen, however, saw the truth. To a 20-something girl from the Big Apple, being trapped in a ground floor apartment with a man who could talk for 3 hours about the logistics of a mess hall in 1944 was the definition of purgatory. She ought to be out having some fun with people her own age, Helen argued, her voice softening. She ought to be out dating. The word hit Stanley like a physical blow. Dating. In this city, it's crawling with perverts